Hey everybody, welcome to Self-Publishing Podcast. Today we're going to have Christine Niles on. She's a multifaceted person. We had Christine on not that long ago to talk about our marketing and what's coming and all that stuff. And today she's going to talk about productivity and specifically finding the time to write, which we'll talk more about once she's on. And so there you go. And then if you're live, we do have another show, but I won't tell you about that because you people who are on audio are just going to get confused. You won't know what to do.
Yeah, we're going to stop doing that. It's a New Year's resolution. But this is we are recording live for the last time this year. So we're also saying goodbye to 2016.
Bye 2016.
Smell you later.
I knew he would say that. Oh my God.
Am I that predictable?
Yeah, actually, Sean, I asked Dave about the expression that you thought that everybody in the world knew from the 90s.
No, the one? I don't think everybody in the world knew. I know that's a local in Long Beach thing.
Oh, because you presented it to our table as something. Remember this? And everybody looked at you like, who the hell are you?
No, I was asking if anybody remembered it because nobody outside of Long Beach has.
All right, well, now you need to...
neck. That's what you mean, right?
Yes, I do.
Moded is the one I think everybody knows. Did you have moded?
I don't know, but when Sean, just to be clear in my defense, Dave, when Sean presented this to our table, I don't think it was clear that this was a Long Beach expression. And we all, oh, that's right, you were there. I forgot that you flew in. And we all kind of looked at him and went, what? Scratch your dirty neck?
No, this is very clear. Because we talked about this all summer, which was way before the avalanche. And my friend Angie from Long Beach, we were a few years apart and went to different schools, but we both had scratch your dirty neck. But other people I've met in life haven't. So I survey this.
Well, it was all clear to you. It wasn't all clear to us.
Okay, Dave, did you have your moded? Like when you were wrong, did you tell somebody they were moded?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
Well, in Long Beach, we had moded, but I found that elsewhere in the country. But
I've heard moded.
Yeah,
it wasn't big, but I heard moded.
Yeah, your moded corroded, your booty exploded was pretty big in like first grade.
I hate this entire episode so far.
All right, so let's move on because that's not terribly relevant. That can be Dave something cool. Does anyone else have something cool?
I have something cool.
I do too, but I only have one.
Sean should get one after that.
I won't get one next week.
What? Okay, I'm going to turn my something cool into scratch your dirty neck. Watch out. I'm going to bring that shit back. Haley's friends are already saying it, and not ironically.
They're saying it ironically.
No, they are not.
No, they are.
It's been very clarified.
They live in Austin. They're saying it ironically.
They are not. Anyway, mine is Eminem's new single, which does not sound anything like a single, but it's called Campaign Speech. And I think it's from October, and I heard it in October, but only like a minute of it. And I thought, this sucks. What happened to you, Eminem? You used to be awesome. You used to know how to put a hook out there. And it's not really a song.
That's like what Eminem would say if he couldn't rhyme in one of his songs. What you just said right there.
So it's there's no hook. There's no chorus. It's not really a song. It's more like an 8-word spoken word piece where he's kind of showing off through most of it. Yeah, it's 8 minutes. But the rhyme schemes are just crazy, and his wordplay and flow is still just the best. And so I listened to it once and thought, meh. And then I listened to it a couple months later now, and I listened to it like 50 times since. Like
I think it was a freestyle. I don't think it was a song. I think he just did it.
Yeah, but it's off his new album. It's the first release off his new album.
Oh my God, really?
Yes. But that's what I think is awesome, because his first releases off of new albums are always like jokey bullshit with a lot of punchlines. No. And this is just very serious minded. And although there are jokey punchlines in there, but there's also just like crazy structure and just a lot of like shit where like you could read the sentence 3 different ways and just really layered and just basically proving that he is the best MC of all time. And if you like Eminem, it's a great listen. If you don't like Eminem, it's hard because there's not even anything to like hook your ears into.
There's no music.
Yeah, it's very subtle production in the back. But it does change. And it's the part in the song where he's just clearly showing off because he's ending stanzas with words that do not in any way, shape, or form rhyme and never would, and he's making it anyway, and he's doing it so syncopated that they can actually add a drum track to the cut, and it's just crazy. Like once you actually start listening to it, it's kind of amazing how well.
And when is that album coming out?
I don't know. I wish I knew. Like I'm ready to listen to it yesterday.
I'm sure I'll get bulletins.
Yeah, his work is like a treasure box of words to just like I love listening to it. I feel like it's a big thing to untangle. Anyway, that's my something.
Treasure box of words.
Yeah, it is, and he's still vile. Like that hasn't gone.
Oh no, I like him. I mean, I'm just laughing at your choice of words.
But it is like there's just so much language there. Like I either want to hear the rhyme schemes or I want to hear the wordplay, because he's very clever and he's very pleased with himself too, with the little sound effects that he has. And I don't know, it's just there's no one like him, and it's always a treat to hear what he's going to do with language next.
If you don't like him, it's a diarrhea bucket. Words.
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely an accurate statement.
It's a diarrhea bucket, a thing.
Oh, I hope not.
Well,
maybe just in Florida.
No, I think it is.
Are you trying to seg into the ad read?
No, I'm not even kidding that there's been like 3 different times people are shitting in buckets in CI stories.
Okay, stop. I will veto Dave something cool because you know he's not going to be able to get through it at this point. You just have to go after me. So mine is, this is another kind of cross genre or deciding what a story really is thing. You know, a while ago, like it's become kind of a joke, like, oh, Johnny hates superheroes. I don't actually hate superheroes, but I'm not really a superhero fan. I just like, I never read comic books.
He had the chance to write a really awesome superhero story this year, and he rejected it.
I think that I just don't love the idea. I'm not in the culture, and I think that in general, it's like, okay, I just don't. I think the problem is that I just don't buy them. I don't resonate with the stories. But that said, that's my personal preference. But Robin was gone for a few days. And so I was like, I'm going to watch the movies that I don't normally get to watch because she's not into like anything with action or tension or violence, which is basically 2 ingredients I need to have in a movie, right? If she was against nudity, we'd have nothing in common. But I watched 3 movies. The first I watched Mad Max Fury Road, which I thought was cool. I thought the aesthetic was cool. I didn't think it was great. But then the 2 that are relevant to this is I watched Deadpool and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, based largely on Clark's.
Dude, those are 3 awesome movies. It was a hell of a week.
It was a hell of a week, and I really liked both of the superhero movies. And the reason I feel is because they were very, very atypical superhero movies. So the reason that I actually finally went on Captain America is because I hated the first one. Everybody said, "Oh, you gotta watch The Winter Soldier," and I didn't actually pick it up until Clark was on this show, Clark Chamberlain, and he said, it's not really a superhero movie. It's a spy thriller that happens to have a superhero. Mm-hmm. And it is. It's very like Jason Bourne, but there's superheroes in it. And with that context, I went and I watched.
Jason Bourne kind of a superhero?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like there's an element of superhero-ness to anything that's a spy thriller. Like James Bond is kind of a superhero. Mm-hmm. And with that framework, it was like you take the exact same ingredients and you just kind of shuffle like what are you doing with this piece? And I was really into it. And Deadpool for a totally different reason, because it was so not, it was like it was paying homage to the mold of, I mean, it was a Marvel film, but also kind of playing with it. Like there was a lot of references to a movie being a movie. Like there's a lot of fourth wall breaking.
There's a ton of winking at the audience. I mean, just a ton.
Right, like where, and this isn't a spoiler if you haven't seen it, but where he goes to the Xavier School mansion.
I love this.
Like, he's like, what? It's just the 2 of you here every time. It's like the studio couldn't pay for more extras. And I think that though, and it was R-rated, so there was nudity and a lot more violence, and there was a lot of swearing.
All the good stuff.
And so I just thought it was interesting that those 2 movies were able to take a genre that I'm not really into and turn it into 2 movies that I really loved, just with some different framing. So I thought that was neat. Dave.
Oh, you are coming to me?
Well, I was giving you time to recover.
Oh, okay. I saw a movie on Netflix. It's a movie I hadn't even heard of. It's called Standoff. Thomas Jane, Lawrence Fishburne, and there's like a 11 or 12-year-old girl.
Thomas Jane, the original Punisher. Oh, the second Punisher, actually.
Yes. And I haven't been a huge fan of his, but this is like one of those. I thought it was an hour when I just started watching it. I didn't realize it was like an hour 20 minutes, but it looked like a short, quick watch, something that I hadn't heard of, but it looked kind of cool. It was on the new Netflix stuff. And this girl, it's kind of like, what do you call it? The Professional. A girl witnesses a murder, and she comes up to this guy's house, like asking for help, and Lawrence Fishburne plays a hitman. But then it's not like The Professional in that it's not like a big action piece. It's not a Luc Besson movie. It's like a quiet stage play almost, and it all takes place in one house from like 10 minutes on. And what I liked about it was it set up the characters very well early on. It was a layered sort of character development for both the hitman and the guy that's in the house that winds up trying to protect this little girl. And I thought it was a pretty damn good movie. It's probably a low budget movie, but it was shot well, and the acting was very good. It's definitely worth your time.
What's it called, Dave?
Standoff.
I've never heard of it.
Neither had I. And like every now and then, like I'll just put on Netflix and look for
It's just streaming on Netflix?
Yeah. So
that's cool.
I like taking a chance on movies, and lately I've seen a few good ones, and I haven't been disappointed. So
That sounds almost optimistic.
I know.
I think he's getting infected before 2017.
Infected Before 2017 from Collective Inkwell coming this year. All right. So before we have Christine on, and this is, I don't actually have a segue after the one earlier, is just the idea of story jackets. I want to talk about story jackets. So, we're currently working on our 2017 calendar, like our first releases, and Sean is roughing out some stuff, and we're trying to figure out like where is the story going to go, and like how do you reconcile it with some other existing works, right? Like so we have other stuff that has been published before in the world, and we have other things that it needs to dovetail with, and so the two of us are like trying to bang our heads against the wall and try and figure it out. And lo and behold, of course, we have other eyes on this, so we do our own internal story jackets from our developmental editor Clark Chamberlain. And so if you are roughing out your story and need a developmental editor's professional eyes on that, this is way too professional. Somebody say dick joke.
Dick joke.
Dick joke. You can get a Sterling and Stone story jacket.
If your story has holes, we'll plug them.
There you go. That's much better.
Wow.
So I'll just remind you about story jackets then. It's so boring. sterlingandstone.net/story jacket. Get in early if you want, because they're booking up. And also, I think we can officially announce. Can we say the name?
Yes.
Okay. So the name of the romance story jackets is Story Garter, and Tammy will be doing those. So we are officially now accepting those, but we don't, I believe, have a URL yet. Correct? So just go through Story Jacket and just indicate your preference. And
so if you want your romance holes filled.
There you go, Dave. Thanks for playing along.
I feel dirty after that very professional ad read. Just too much like it just felt like the opposite of Eminem emceeing.
That's okay. Christine's here to clean us up.
All right, Christine's here to clean us up. So let's just sterlingandstone.net/story jacket. And with that, thank you for coming to the show, Christine.
And why do you think I'm going to clean you up?
I don't know. You look so scrubbed yourself. Your hair's all pretty, and you're.
I know. I was noticing.
Your tree. You look like a Christmas card, Christine. That's what you look like right now.
She's got the Clark Griswold Christmas tree back there too.
She's got the black turtleneck too. She looks very holiday card.
I managed to get a shower this morning.
It suits you.
That makes one of us.
I'm pausing because Sean is show running this one.
Oh, well, actually.
And I'm waiting for somebody to ask me a question.
Actually, I think Christine is kind of running this because she's the most organized out of all of us. But yeah, so this started with a book that Christine. How much of the backstory do we want to talk about this book? I think some of it's relevant, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. We actually want to talk about some tangible takeaways as far as time to write and all of that. But it's an interesting project just from the beginning as far as a little bit of resistance goes too, because this was a project that existed before Christine's time with Sterling and Stone. And it seemed like there was something we talked about really early. Like, did we talk about this like in April? Like, was it that long ago? Okay, so this was on the docket for a long, long time. And it was something that had been written kind of like 80%, but never really tied the knot on it, never tied the bow, never finished. And from the beginning, Christine was like, yeah, let's finish that. We'll do that. It's going to be awesome. And there was something about the book that held her back a little bit, getting that last 20% done. But every time we talked about it, it seemed great. And then recently we're like, okay, are we going to finish this? Because we could take it off the calendar, but January, January is the time. And Christine wouldn't back down. She's like, no, it's January. January is the time. That's when everybody's getting back in and they're really making commitments to themselves. And one of the things that's interesting is talking about what approach we're going to take with time to write, because for a while I was even thinking that we had kind of planned on doing some sort of like a getting things done time management thing in January, and I would kind of spearhead that. But looking at my plate, like, it's kind of crazy, and I do a lot of like unconventional things to manage my time and squeeze a lot of things in, where Christine is just good at it because she's studied, because she's dialed in, because she's taught other people to do this, because her history and work and project management gave her the unique skill set to actually talk about time in a more structured, intelligent way than I would, where mine is strategic based. Like, I'm going to do this and this and this, and that's what works for me. But hers is more practical steps. And so we agreed that, yeah, we're going to write time to write. We're going to put our all into it. And it's the first book. This is kind of interesting too. It's the first Sterling and Stone book that's kind of built out in this new model that we have going into next year, where we're trying to do something a little bit extra with each book. So that's like printables or other little cool things. And there's actually a really, really, really cool thing that's kind of sort of attached to this book at some point that I don't think we can talk about. Maybe Christine will. Christine, you have absolute permission to talk about that if you want to, the thing. But if not, that's okay too. But I'll turn it over to you, Christine. And I love your ideas. I love how committed you are to fitting a lot of things into the day and helping other people to do the same.
And I'll tell a little bit more about the story that Sean shared, because this has been very much a cobbler's children type issue for me. I've worked for about 20 years in project management and time management and business analysis and, all kinds of like goofy analytical crap. So I know all of the things that make time work better and how to be efficient. And I really value efficiency. Like, I've got like a process to set up the coffee maker, because I don't want to waste 5 seconds in that. But at the same time, it's really easy for me to fall into that kind of, ooh, I'm a creative, fluffy bunny. And it's hard for me to stay really disciplined. And I mean, I'll be really honest, I wrote more and more consistently when I worked a 60-hour-a-week day job than I did after I quit that to become a full-time writer.
Oh, wait, stop right there, because that's a really, really important point to underscore, because I think that happens to everyone. When we have our own freedom and we can govern our own days however we want, and deadlines that where we're accountable to other people disappear, it's very difficult, unless we are actually setting structures and systems in place, it's very difficult to be as accountable to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, right? Like, wasn't it much easier when you were at the paper, as stressful as it was? Wasn't it easier to meet those deadlines and do that than just completely accounting for yourself?
Well, yeah. I didn't get any creative work done when I worked at the paper, but yes.
Yeah. And it was like that for me when I was in corporate and I worked at home. So I had the discipline of, I have to be at my desk and I have to be logged into Instant Messenger and I have to be logged into email by, before 8:00 in the morning. And I usually was there until well after 6, 7, 8 at night. I did stuff on weekends because it needed to get done. So I had that discipline of sitting at my desk and the habit. And then I knew I wanted to write. I knew I wanted to take it seriously. So the only time I could do it was at 5:00 in the morning. And so I started doing that. And I had that really steady time from 5 to about 7:30 that I was really good about for a while when I was working the day job. And then when I quit the day job to be a writer, I was like, oh, I have all day to do this. And I ended up spending all day on freaking Facebook.
Who listening right now says that is a familiar story?
So, it was one of those having to go back to the process and, having to go back to the things that I know. And I was kind of letting, what I felt like drive my day. And it's like, okay, I have to go back to the things that I know, and I have to go back to structuring my day, and I have to go back. And since I started, I did a time study on myself about 2 weeks ago, and all hell was breaking loose in my life. I've moved my office into the basement because our entire house has been under construction since Thanksgiving, since 2 days after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes of every meeting with Christine now is about construction and the chaos it's bringing into her life.
About sleeping on air mattresses and my Christmas tree sticking through the top of the ceiling. And yeah, it's been fun. But I did a time study during that time to say, okay, where is my time really going? What am I really doing? Because every single day I felt like, okay, I've been going balls to the wall all fucking day. And I feel like I didn't get anything done. And so that's a perfect time to actually look at, okay, what am I really doing? And then how can I restructure that in a way that makes a lot of sense and in a way that I'm not, getting interrupted. And I started looking at that data and I'm like, okay, I'm getting interrupted, by the drywallers 6 times. And it's something that I can't change, but it's something that I can work around and set some expectations with them about when they can interrupt me and when they need to call my husband. And, all kinds of things like that I had to get a lot more disciplined. And then they would interrupt me and then I would, I'll check Facebook really quick. And I found that, after I caught myself doing that, I've looked at Facebook twice in the last week. And
good girl.
And no more than 30. And I apologize to everybody in the Facebook group since, I'm not there. But my life is so much better for it, and I'm getting so much.
But that's the thing. You can't feel apologetic. I think there are seasons to our performance, and there are times when you're going to be more on Facebook and you're going to be more social, and there's going to be times when you're just buried down getting your work done, and that's okay. You can't feel like you have to maintain that social all the time. Sometimes disappear and then come back when it's fun, when it's rewarding, but don't treat it as something you have to do or as a distraction, because either thing is wrong and they're keeping you from your real work, the stuff that's going to move you forward and change things. So,
yeah. And my buckle down and things that I had to do was to get this stupid book finished. I don't, everybody gets to the point in their book where they just want to strangle the book. And I really love the book. But like Sean said, I had a really big block on this book. I set a public goal a year and a half ago to have this book published and sell 1,000 copies within 90 days of a year and a half ago.
I love the irony of time to write that you never.
Yeah.
And if I remember, there were several phased blocks, right? Like we would hear about it again, and then it would get stalled again. Like
there came a point where like I could just tell like Christine was just waiting during every conversation for me to mention it. And so after a while I just stopped because I don't want to like make her feel bad. And then it just got to the point where, okay, is this on the calendar or not? Like we just have to know. And she stepped up. She's like, I don't want to take that off the calendar, so let's do it. And then we made it happen. So let's talk specifically about the book. And there's something that you just kind of teased out that I want to talk a lot more about, because my favorite part of the book, you call it a time study. I like time audit. It's the same thing, but it's really investigating where you spent your time and why, and asking yourself the right series of questions so that you're leveraging that. Can you talk about the time study and what you're supposed to do and all of that?
And before you do, Christine, if you guys want to check out Time to Write and some worksheets that we're going to talk about, I'll mention this a few times, but just, you never know when you come into a show. It's at sterlingandstone.net/time-to-write. So, and there's some worksheets that you can get that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and the time study is one of those worksheets. Calling it a time study comes from a couple of different related areas. When I first started working in project management and consulting, one of the first things I learned was that what people think is going on has absolutely nothing to do with what really is happening in life.
And isn't that true in like most fields? Like not just time, but like what you eat, like what you consume, like everything. Like we all think one thing, how we're behaving. Like everyone else looks at our behavior differently than we look at our own behavior, right? So these kinds of audits are important to grow as a person.
Yeah, and so what you think, like at the end of the day, I feel like I got nothing done. But then when I look back, if I'm jotting down just every 15 minutes, what I'm doing, the key things that I'm doing, I'll look back and say, oh, wait, I actually did do a lot. Or, oh, look, I spent 3 hours on Facebook. But what I did and the reality of it is so different from what my memory retains and says, okay, and your brain will put emphasis on things depending on kind of your filters. And I learned in consulting that you really, really have to get down to the facts of the situation rather than kind of the fuzzy lying bastard feelings, because feelings lie. And my boss, they trained me to do this and to really look at the facts. And then a while in, my boss actually asked me to do a time audit, and I got really defensive.
Like, what the hell? I'm working hard. Why are you questioning me?
Yeah. And I'm like, why don't you trust me? And he's like, I'm just asking you to do what you do for clients. And I'm like, still, but I begrudgingly, I respected him. So I wrote everything down and I did it for like a week, and I tried to hand it to him. I tell this story in the book. I tried to hand it to him and he pushed it back to me, and he refused to look at it. He said, this wasn't for me. This was for you. And I'm like, but I want approval. And he's like, no, just look at it and, do your consulting process on yourself and see where you can change and see where you're doing great and all that. And I realized the word that I had an issue with was audit. And I think Tammy said it in the comments. She said, audit seems very severe, and it does.
Right. But it is practically like that it is the right word. It's because, and I understand study is softer and we're talking to creative people, so we need to be a little warmer and fuzzier. But audit is really accurate. Like you are auditing, and what do you do after an audit? You take the datum and you do something with it, right? Where a study, you're trying to learn something for sure, but an audit is to specifically fix those gaps. But I appreciate study, so please go.
Yeah, but so one of the worksheets that I've got available as part of the book, and as if you go to sterlingandstone.net/time-to-write, you can download that worksheet. It's a 12-hour, so do 2 for the day, and you can block off the time that you're asleep. And if you watch a movie for 2 hours, you don't have to every 15 minutes. But watching movie, you can put big blocks around it. But it's in 15-minute increments so that you can get the level of detail and so that you can see what's happening when you're getting interrupted. And I really recommend doing that for a full week. So do 7 days of it, because you'll get a breadth of, you'll get your work days, you'll get your weekends, especially if you work unusual schedules, or if you're an entrepreneur and on your own. A lot of times days don't look the same. Some people will bucket and like Monday and Tuesday be writing days and Wednesday and Thursday be marketing days. And so you'll get a really good look at what a full week looks like, and then you can really start making some choices. And one of the other things, and the other worksheet that I've got is the download on that page is called the I did this list. And it's a way to put,
I love that.
It started out as the shit I did list, but I tried to clean it up just a little bit. and a lot of times when I do this for a full week, it'll take pages and pages of sheets to get everything that I did, but I put math to it. And I mean, yes, you can use a calculator because, I do too. But basically I'm putting numbers to how important something is, what the impact of that thing is, like, how much does it really matter? And then what the payoff is. It's like a 10 payoff would be, it solves world hunger tomorrow. And a 0 payoff is, no one would ever notice. It has no value at all. It, is going to pay off.
It's like SPP versus worst show ever.
If we can get Dave to do a time study for a week, how much do you think we could auction that off for?
That would be so funny.
Watched Neighbors for evidence of wrongdoing. The thing about these, this is just paying attention. Both of these are bringing reality to what it is that you're doing, rather than just, I got it figured out. And it'll have an additional effect, because I've done things where, Sean mentioned you pay attention, you audit just about anything, that it'll make a difference, kind of in a quantum way. And I've done this with food, like I've kept food logs, and I've certainly done it with time. And what it will do is, in addition to making you realize, boy, I did more than I thought, or boy, I really didn't do very much at all, or the one we're looking for, boy, look at there's a bunch of time there that I could have used and didn't. It will change your awareness in the moment. So with food, it's a little like, okay, well, I'm going to eat these Twinkies and I'm going to have to log that. Am I cool with that? Or, you'll start to think, okay, well, I'm going to go play on Facebook. Well, I am going to have to log that. So should I do that or should I write? And it does have that extra effect as well. People always say, I don't have time for this. And it's always such a bullshit thing, because no matter how busy you are, there's always a way if you rearrange your priorities, which is what I love about all this.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm sorry, Christine, it looked like you wanted to.
Yeah, it's that we all have the same amount of time. I mean, everybody has 24 hours. It's what we do with it. It's where we choose to invest it. And if you think about what you're doing as an investment, where we choose to invest our time, I mean, that's our choice. And yes, there are choices that we make. Like if I choose to not work, then Sean would choose to not send my paycheck. And so, there are choices that would have consequences. Yeah, Edward says, or where your boss invests it for you. So there are investment points where, I'm investing my time from 8 to 5 to get my paycheck, and that it's an investment and it's an immediate payoff. But I also look at, going to yoga class to me is a high payoff, high impact thing. So even though it seems like, okay, well, yoga doesn't have a monetary payoff. But if I don't go to my yoga class, I'm not pleasant to be around and I get really achy. And
it makes you more efficient. It makes you more capable. Yeah. Same reason, like I go to the gym 3 times a week. And it's the same reason. Like I feel for those 3 hours that I spend, I get a lot more in energy and production and all of that. I think for this time study thing, the thing that's really, really not just important, but is essential, because if you don't do this, everything breaks down, is to be honest with yourself. And I think that even people who are just like, they know that nobody's going to see their time study and they're still little lying bitches. Like, it's crazy how people will do that. You spent 30 minutes watching Ellen when you had something due, and you're like, 30 minutes research. Like,
yeah, it is super tempting to do that. And I was talking to Sean a couple of weeks ago when I was doing my time study, and I was telling him about the level of detail and the level of honesty that I was putting into, and this, it's not very ladylike, but
I know what you're going to say.
On my time
they
study,
will love this.
On my time study, I literally wrote, took a shit.
Was it in a bucket?
It was not in a bucket. It probably could have been, because it was the day we only had one toilet working in the house. So Dave, I know you understand that.
I like that you didn't just go to the bathroom.
Well, different things take different amounts of time.
That's true.
And I mean, the thing is, that is an interruption that you kind of can't delay.
You can if you try hard enough.
You just squeeze together. Like, you can hold it in there for a while.
And it takes like half an hour.
It depends on what you
Oh my God, it does not. It takes me like.
If you bring a book with you, it does.
If you bring some work with you, you solve the problem.
It should come out fast and like an S.
Oh, stop.
Honestly, Johnny, that was a temptation. I'm like, I'm doing time study. I better take my phone in there and actually do work so that I can, say I'm still doing work. And it's like, no, that's not real. That's lying to myself. And I'm going to be honest about this. And so it really is, you've got to be honest with yourself, and you've got to recognize no one else is going to see this. Of course, 5 days into my time study, I decided that when people actually buy the book and get the full set of book opt-ins, I am actually going to share my full workbook. So everybody is going to see that unless I decide to edit it, like redacted. I could do it.
Now you're not allowed to edit it. You've made it public. Everybody wants to see when you shit and how long it took.
Now everybody needs to see when I shit. And
be careful, they'll triangulate and figure out not only where you live, but when you're most vulnerable.
Except that I followed your advice, Dave.
Imagine the SEAL team.
Okay.
I do
vulnerable. Move in.
But anyway, the whole point is about creating change based on reality. And if you don't have a really clear sense of that reality, if you're not honest, then you're not going to be able to look and say, okay, what can I change? What can't I change? And in the things that I can change, how can I then look at the things that I'm doing? How can I group the things that are alike together? How can I look at Facebook once instead of 4 times throughout the day? Or does it make sense to look at it while I'm standing in line at the grocery store and while I'm waiting for the dog to do his business outside, and then not look at it any other times? You start looking at it that way, and how can you develop the schedule that works right for you and leverages your creative times and the times when your brain is just completely dead.
And that's important too, because a lot of times when people are investigating things like time management, and they have the best of intentions, right? You want to figure out a schedule that works. You want to get more done. Like, we've all been there. And the thing that's interesting about what we do and waste our time versus what other people who are in different, professions, when they waste their time, if you're like an employee who's wasting your time, or even if you're a freelancer who's wasting your time, their time, and you could be getting, money for sales copy or whatever, and you're not, because you're farting around, so you have less clients. You're still, you're losing momentum and dollars maybe. But for us specifically, if we're using our time to build assets that we're going to be able to sell forever, and we're trying to build a portfolio, and we're trying to stack those assets, and we're trying to build series of books and readers and all of that, every hour that we squander, we can never recapture that. That's momentum that we lose. It's readers that we don't have. It's books that we don't sell. So our hours are super, super important. And we can't go and look for a solution that's one size fits all and say, okay, here's the holy grail. Here's how time management for authors. That doesn't work. What you need to do is, who am I? What are my boundaries and boundaries? I know boundaries isn't a word. What are my boundaries, my borders and boundaries? Can
you be specificals about that, please?
Yes, I sure can. What is my end goal? What am I trying to accomplish? And how do I work backwards from there? And then that's the strategy for me. And that's what I really got from Time to Write that I loved, was that it wasn't like, here's the template to build your time. It was, here are the tools to figure out where you're wasting your time, what you need your time to accomplish, and how to organize your day.
I think the secret to time management is conscious. This is the same thing as I was talking about food logging and stuff. It's conscious decision making. It's not how should I, with a capital S, be spending my time. Like, there's some authority that's determining that I should be doing this, or I should not be doing this, or I should not be on Facebook. It's conscious decision making. It's not kind of automatically like Christine was saying, you check something, you go to talk to the contractors, and then you check Facebook, and you're just kind of not really thinking about it, or you're half thinking about it, and then you do it. If you want to check Facebook and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to get my work done, and it's going to hurt me down the road, and I'm consciously making that choice, then check Facebook like a motherfucker, like, I'm doing this. I'm checking Facebook, bitch. And just go to it. You can even
I did that on Saturday morning.
I'm checking Facebook. And the other thing too is I think that time candy is a little bit like literal candy, in that once you have once you're past the moment where it felt good to waste that time or to eat whatever you just ate, it's like, okay, well, that was done, and now I'm worse off. And I think that
oh my God,
I have more.
Yeah, no, I want to talk about that for a second because I've been there too, where I'll waste an afternoon and I'm like, I'm just going to keep wasting it. Right. And then like it feels good, like you're getting away with something is what it feels like. It feels like you're being a naughty little kid. You're getting away with something, but then you have the hangover, and that's terrible.
But there is a difference between doing that and then intentionally stopping and taking a break. And that intentional downtime.
But intention is the operative word.
Yeah, it's the I have hit the wall. I'm done. I have to take a nap. I've been going too much. I need to take a break. You have to build that restoration time in, because otherwise no one can sustain perfect efficiency all the time.
Johnny
you have to have self-care time. You have to have time to.
No, but Johnny can't. Like, that's
actually I've told this story before. I'll tell it briefly. I think that what Christine is saying is the flip side. It's the piece that nobody talks about with time management. Is you can be so quote unquote efficient that you are actually not efficient because you're refusing yourself stopping. You can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to write all day long and I'm not going to get up. You're going to hurt yourself. I mean, not literally, but you're going to hurt your productivity and your storytelling and whatever else.
Those abs are not going to sculpt themselves.
There is that element to it. But I actually stopped. I cut an hour out of my writing time and instead got up a half hour later and improved my productivity because I realized that hour was just a stupid time. It was actually hurting me because I had to take a big break. I had to take like 2 hour break to get my kids ready. And so eliminating that and focusing on a shorter period of time after they were gone actually had me writing better and writing more.
And you probably resented that break less.
Right.
I know for me, when I was trying to kind of a similar schedule where I would get up, I was trying to get up at 6, I would write for about an hour, and then Mark would get up and we would have coffee, and then he would go to work, and then I would do a little bit more. And I got really angry at him for existing. Okay, that's not
foundation of every marriage.
Did he text you hi?
He does that. But then I do that to him too. It's like, although we say yo, but yeah, it's like, okay. Or he would like creep in and, can I interrupt you? And then I'd get really mad. And it's like, that's not really healthy. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to earlier, and I'm going to be done when he gets up, and we're going to spend a little bit of time in the morning when he's getting ready, and I'm going to make him coffee and, be all nice and actually pay attention. And then when he goes to work, I'm going to go to work and everything will be fine. And it's so much better that I'm intentional about that and using that like you do, Johnny, as that's a breaking point. You're not trying to go back to the same thing, because interruption is a bitch. Yeah.
And for me, like I've been more intentional this year about time off than this will sound like an exaggeration, but I think I've been more intentional about time off this year than every year of my working life put together before now. I took my first vacation ever, like actually left, unplugged, didn't answer email for 4 days. That was the first. I've been pretty good about my date days. I've been pretty good about taking a break to get away from the desk every single day at the same time. So I'm circulating and I'm walking, and I'm actually having less hours at the desk this year than last year. But I think I produced as a human a lot more this year than last year. So it's not about how much you work. It's about how efficiently you work and how intentional. I think that is the key word here, is intention. What is your intention and how well are you executing on that? And
it's your personality too, because what Sean is just describing, last year, I kept saying, no, don't interrupt your date day. Like, do you remember there were a bunch of times when I was like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be reminded to be selfish for a change because you want to, no, that thing needs to be done. So it is awareness of where your weaknesses are. Do you have a harder time not working or a harder time working?
I have a harder time not working.
It makes asks, as a human, what's the other option?
Well,
you've learned the secret. He's not human.
I'm not. I'm half robot, half alien.
He's a rap god.
And like 90% knows. But I think Edward has a great question.
Yeah.
But before we hit that, I really, really like what Beth says. Sounds like becoming aware of the stories you tell yourself about what you actually do, facing them and deciding what story do you actually want to live. That's so well said. Yeah. And I would just add that I think that goes not just for time, but for everything in our lives. We tell ourselves stories that may or may not be true. And it's really great to question those stories as often as we logically can.
I'm skinny in my story.
Well, and I mean that there's something to that, Dave. You know, if you tell yourself you will become skinny, you can become skinny, you are a skinny.
No, I lie and say I'm skinny now. So.
And then add the Lose It app to your phone and start logging what you eat. And
okay, so
that awareness is really important. And then looking at, just looking at what you're doing when you're doing it. Are you trying to write in the wrong times? That was, for me, that was another big one. When I try to write in the afternoon, just forget it. I might be able to get, 17 words an hour, but if I write in the morning, it's great. But other people are the other way. I mean, Dave, if you tried to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and write, you'd probably shoot yourself first, right?
You mean stay up?
If I stay up, that's great.
No, I mean, you go to sleep at a reasonable human time and you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and write. I mean, you would be committing murder really fast.
Christine, you and I have also talked about the difference between fiction and nonfiction. Because I'm saying, well, can you really juggle both? You're like, yeah, different part of my brain. I'm on fiction early in the morning. Nonfiction is in the afternoon. And that's just fine. If I try to, swap those out, it's not as effective for me.
Yeah. Like when I tried to work on time to write first thing in the morning, like when I was still kind of in that sleepy, dreamy state, it was a mess because the analytical piece of my brain kicks in after I've had a couple of cups of coffee and been awake for 3 hours.
I need about 14 hours to wake up.
Okay, so I want to talk. I know we're winding down here, and I want to ask you about the specific takeaways of the book, but I also don't want to lose Edward's question because I think it's really good, and I think this is something that I think all of us have our own opinions, and we should all answer this honestly. But he's asking what you think of multitasking.
I think multitasking is a temptation from Satan, and
you need a book cover designed.
Huh?
You need a book cover designed?
You might. As I'm sitting here in front of my Christmas tree, I have my laptop, I have 2 monitors open, I have 4 tabs, I have 2 PDFs underneath it, I have Slack, I have another Chrome window with 2 tabs, I have a Google Hangouts, and I have Scrivener open, plus Zoom right in front of me. And that's because I sit down to do the show so I would be less distracted. So when I say multitasking is from Satan, I will say that it is like the worst temptation for me because I expect to try to be able to do multiple things at once, but no brain can actually do 2 things at once. Your brain, even if you're multitasking, you're switching, and there are studies all over the place that I don't have links for right now.
There's no study. You don't need the links because there's no study that says multitasking is awesome. You should do it all the time. Like that study doesn't exist. And, to Beth's point, the stories that we tell ourselves, this is a big one. This is a very big one, especially in the modern age that we live in. We tell ourselves that we are getting a lot of shit done when we're multitasking, and it's not true. We're code switching. And anytime you code switch, you're slowing down. And so I've actually been much, much better about this lately too, turning Slack off. Like if I want to go into deep editing, I don't want those alerts to come up because they distract me. I see the little notification come up and then I either have to decide, should I answer that? Should I wait till later? You know what? It's better to just not even see it.
Yeah, and once it's in your brain is stuck and it's there and it's distracting you and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I've mentioned this before. I have an app called Freedom on my phone and on my computer so that my internet's shut off when I'm working, and so multitasking is usually a distraction tactic for yourself. Like it's a procrastination tactic. It's usually like, okay, I'm going to do this other thing. I'm going to do this other thing. Focusing on one thing is definitely the way to go.
You get way more done in way less time, pretty much always.
So let's talk about the Time to Write book here. I'm just going to read Christine's description of it because it's actually spot on. Time to Write is a short, efficient book with a process to get a handle on where you're spending your time and how to invest it in your writing, whether you want to start or whether you want to write more, which I think is kind of the whole key here. It's like there are plenty of people, we are full-time writers, but most of you listening are not. And we hear a lot like, I don't have time to write. I have these other things going on. And the chances that you actually literally do not have time to write are pretty slim. And you probably not really even exaggerating. You just aren't aware. Like that's the thing here is that as you go through and you do some of the exercises that Christine has laid out, you'll start to see that you were wrong about your perceptions of your time. That's the thing. Like, oh, I've just been wrong. I actually do have time to write.
Yeah, I want to hit two things here too in the comments because the comments are great today, by the way. Thank you, party people. So Jesse says, since I made a concerted effort not to multitask, I've been able to enjoy the things that I decide are truly important. There's some kind of Zen shit. Like, even though I'm doing less, I'm getting more done. Couldn't agree with that more. Like that's what happens. Like once you're really intentional about it, you do make time for the things that are important to you. And you really see where that's why I love the time study. That, again, my favorite part of the book by far, because if you do that and you follow it, it's like trying to lose weight and working with a nutritionist. Of course, you're going to do a better job if you do everything she says and you're honest about it. Like those are the two things.
Well, and if you do the follow-up, I mean, with the book is a full set of worksheets and 21 days of daily emails where it's like 10 minutes a day of, how to look at the various things that you're doing, how to find, there's a section on how to say no and how to kill things. There's a dread list worksheet in there. There's just, it's a process that by the end of that 21 days, you've restructured, you've taken all of that stuff that you've learned and you've restructured it into a new schedule that works and found ways to experiment throughout to find the things that work that you may have never even imagined. So it is very much a process. And if you stick with it, it really does work.
And it's something that you can iterate too, because you could take, it doesn't expire. You could take a time study now and then a time study 3 months from now, and you're going to have different results and you're going to be able to grow differently. But I also want to hit Danielle's comment because this is great clarification. Multitasking is fabulous for brain passive activities like loading the dishwasher and listening to podcasts, laundry and podcasts, walking and podcasts. Totally. I like that's great. I'll have meetings while I walk. I'll listen to audiobooks while I walk. That is very true. Because those things are truly independent. Like, you're not, okay, here's something you can't do. If you're planning to walk and think about your story and listen to a podcast, that's not true. Your brain can't listen to the podcast and fully go into the story. So make sure that your multitasking is two things that don't compete with each other.
Yeah, I love podcasts while I'm doing stuff around the house. I watched all of Fiction Unboxed while I was making dinner and unloading dishwasher, and that sat on my tablet on my kitchen counter for that whole month.
Yeah, I think that having a learning thing on the background, that works. But again, that's not, your brain's not competing for the same space. That's when multitasking absolutely fails. I can't answer Slack and edit a page of work. That's impossible. And I've told myself for a year that I can kind of juggle both, but no, I can't, clearly.
So Time to Write, it's a short read, like it's quick, efficient. It won't waste your time. There's a whole bunch of worksheets in there. Like we were hearing about Christine's worksheets, like something came up and she's like, well, I have about a bazillion worksheets I'm creating for Time to Write. So there's a bunch of worksheets and it's a 21-day step-by-step walkthrough with accountability. Do you want to mention the accountability, just self-accountability? Do you want to describe that a little bit before I?
Yeah, what we've got at this point is it talks a lot about developing a support team and making sure you've got people for accountability, but it's also, you can reply to the emails. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to chase everybody down, but there's, in the emails, it's reply to us and tell us what's going on. And I may not reply to every one of them, but I'll definitely be reading them. And even just having that little bit of accountability helps. And then the other thing that we've got in the works, which Sean gave me permission to talk about, we don't have an ETA on it, but it will be soon.
Oh, I'm so excited that we're actually talking about this. I didn't know that we would. Okay.
Is an app that basically is going to be word count tracker. You're going to set your goals for the day and your longer term goals, and it will follow up with you each day. It'll pull your goals from yesterday and say, how did you do on this? And you can rank it from 1 to 5. And it's just for you, but then it will also show you trending of how you're doing so that you can start correlating. It's like, okay, on a day when I wrote really great, I might have not done so great on these. And I mean, you can start looking at correlations of what you're doing, how you're feeling about it. And it will remind you, it's got push notifications. So it'll start reminding you, hey, did you write today? And it's super, super cool. So I'm super excited about that. It won't be ready right at the time that the book comes out, but it will be not too far behind.
Right. So, guys, just to remind you about all the worksheets, the time study and the time study / audit and the I did shit list. That's at sterlingandstone.net /time-to-write. So sterlingandstone.net /time to write with dashes in it. And if you scroll to the bottom, there's an opt-in, and that's where you get it. It looks like the, like one of our book sales pages, but there's an opt-in at the bottom. Christine, will the opt-in stay in once the book is on sale?
Yeah, those 2 worksheets will always be available just as a straight up opt-in. And then after, at the end of the book, there's also a link to get the expanded worksheet set, get my When I Took a Shit examples, and the 21-day email series.
Is the call to action say, want to learn when Christine took a shit?
It should be. It absolutely should be.
All right, everybody. So thank you very much for listening. Christine, thank you for being on sterlingandstone.net /time to write with dashes in there. And thanks, everybody, for being here on the Self-Publishing Podcast.
Thanks so much, and happy 2017.
Bye-bye.